Under a sky of collapsing stars, the last signal from the HFY Empire flickered across the void. Civilizations watched it fade, some with relief, others with hunger. The HFY, once feared for their war chants sung across vacuum, were now ashes orbiting dying worlds. Their fleets were scattered debris. Their leaders scattered minds. But one decision remained. One desperate act untainted by pride or conquest. She was created for this moment. Grown in a crucible of genetic perfection, tailored not to kill, but to represent. Her silver bloodline, once born for war, was encoded with diplomacy. Her name erased. She carried no insignia, no crest. Only one title etched into her psyche, the bride. She stepped aboard a solitary vessel, flanked by silence. No escort. No fanfare. The ship pulsed with one directive, to reach Earth. Not to plead for alliance, nor mercy. But to offer herself. Her body, her bond, her future. A cultural gamble older than her species. Marriage. She stood before the Council of Earth in a chamber of sterilized light, surrounded by faceless silhouettes and emotionless eyes. The cold of the room pierced her like gravity. No introductions were given. No translators spoke. Yet she began. Our kind has conquered stars and been conquered by time, she said. We warred for centuries, believing strength alone could shield us. It did not. What remains is not a plea, but a purpose. I offer myself as bride to humanity. Not as a political gesture, but as binding vow. Join with me, and my people live. Refuse, and we vanish into silence. The silence after her words was not unexpected. She inhaled deeply, steadying a tremor in her voice not bred into her. In HFY culture, union is literal, not metaphorical. Our vows bind not just hearts but cells. Without acceptance, the bond within me unravels. I will perish by design. She paused. Still no answer. The humans are unlike any race. You adapt where others calcify. You evolve, not in flesh but in concept. You wield peace as threat, and silence as answer. This is why we come to you. Because no other species could hold what we are becoming. Her eyes flicked between the motionless council. I do not seek love. I seek meaning. My people require more than existence. They require transformation. Earth is the crucible. I am the offering. She lowered herself onto one knee. A gesture once mocked among HFY, now used in sacred desperation. Her voice broke with restraint. You need not give names. You need not touch me. Simply accept, and I will bind myself to your kind. My death will seed rebirth. My mind will carry your purpose. No reply came. Time passed like centuries. The council remained seated. Her heart, though reinforced with artificial fibers, thudded in raw fear. Not of rejection, but irrelevance. Her creators had warned her this might come. Not refusal, but indifference. That was the true punishment of a dead empire, to be forgotten. Escorted out by emotionless guards, she was placed in a chamber of white walls and filtered air. No chains. No comfort. Just waiting. The pulse of her bond dimmed slightly. The internal timer that counted down her lifespan without union ticked forward. She was dying. Slowly, invisibly, with every second Earth failed to respond. Days passed. She remained still. Nutrient mist kept her alive. Her dreams were blank. Her vision often returned to the council chamber. She replayed her speech 1,000 times. Perhaps too formal. Too alien. Too direct. Her creators did not know how to soften words. They knew only truth. She began to speak aloud, to no one. I am the last chance. My voice was designed to harmonize with yours. Yet you said nothing. Are you testing me? Or have you already answered and I simply didn't recognize it? From the ceiling above, a circular lens blinked. Not a camera, an observation eye. It never moved. But she began to speak to it anyway. If I die here, understand it is not a failure. It is fulfillment. We crafted the perfect messenger. If perfection failed, Then perhaps we misunderstood what humanity listens for. She stood. Her movements were slow, weighted by the internal decay beginning within her. But if you do hear me, if there is something in me you see worth preserving, take it. Not for sentiment, not for tradition, but for strategy. My people will follow whatever I bond to. If you accept me, you inherit an empire of survivors willing to change. She pressed her palm to the wall. This is not a seduction. It is strategy. We do not need your protection. We need your direction. Humanity is the only species not defined by its origin. You define yourselves by your future. That's what we need. Still no reply. But something shifted. The lights dimmed for precisely 1 second. A flicker. She noticed. It was not mechanical failure. It was signal. The internal countdown paused. Her physiology halted degradation. She collapsed to the ground, overwhelmed not by pain but relief. Earth had not spoken. Earth had not touched. But Earth had signaled. In Tetrel code, a single flicker of light from a superior meant affirmation. Her bond initialized. Her veins lit faintly beneath pale skin. Her breath shortened. Neural circuits aligned. The process had begun. She was being accepted. No words. No ritual. Just action. She was moved. No explanation. The guards walked slower. One gave her a look. Barely a glance, but enough to be unmistakably human. It was not pity. It was recognition. They placed her aboard a vessel. No destination was told. But she felt the bond deepen as her body adjusted to gravity shifts, particle bursts, and unspoken data exchanges humming through her spine. Somewhere in deep space, something massive stirred. Ships launched, not from Tetrel remnants, but from Earth's silent forges. Silent, enormous ships darkened with reflective alloy, unmarked but unmistakably human. No media. No declaration. The world's answer was not a treaty. It was movement. She felt it through her bond. Each human ship in motion was a pulse in her chest. She felt their intent not as emotion, but as shared alignment. Her creators had called humanity dangerous, illogical, but she had seen the opposite. Humanity listened without speaking, accepted without promising, moved without warning. Their refusal to announce made them terrifying. Their silent response made them divine. In her chamber, she curled into the corner, cradling her chest. For the first time, she cried. Not in weakness, but in transformation. This was not a romance. This was a merger of species. She no longer represented Tetrel. She was no longer separate. She was now something else. And the galaxy would learn what it meant to accept a bride of humanity. Not through love, but through fire. The cold darkness of space had always been constant, but now it felt different. It throbbed with anticipation, driven by the pulse of something awakening on Earth. The human response had not come through diplomacy, declarations, or debate. It came through coordination so precise, so overwhelming, that even the fragmented sensors of collapsing alien civilizations noticed. The galaxy didn't hear words, it saw movement. The former Tetrel emissary no longer felt tethered to a single species. The bond formed in her had rewritten her essence. Where once her mind was compartmentalized and efficient, it now surged with unpredictable curiosity. Human thought patterns had begun to infiltrate her own. It wasn't chaos. It was complexity. They didn't simplify things to control them. They expanded them until meaning was undeniable. From orbit, she watched the silent launch of Earth's observation fleets. They bore no flags, carried no broadcasts. They were not threats, yet no species could ignore them. They drifted through the galaxy with calm inevitability. Where Tetrel warships had once blared warnings in subspace tones, Earth's craft whispered, yet the message was louder than anything that came before. We have chosen. In the chamber assigned to her aboard the Earth vessel, the environment subtly shifted. Atmospheric composition adjusted to support the long-term integration of her species' respiratory balance. Nutrition mist evolved daily without instruction. These were not accommodations, they were preparations. She wasn't being tolerated, she was being studied, adapted to, incorporated. Through neural linkage with Earth's data systems, she received fragments of human culture. Not directives or mission logs, but stories. Not technical blueprints, but philosophies. A poem about resilience. A myth about sacrifice. A child's voice asking if stars could feel sadness. These were the messages humanity encoded into her consciousness. She understood then what her creators never could. Humans didn't separate sentiment from strength. They synthesized both. Their warriors wrote music. Their engineers debated ethics. Their assassins contemplated the morality of silence. The complexity wasn't weakness, it was armor. Her physiology was now shifting in ways previously deemed impossible. Genetic strands that were once hard-coded had begun to reconfigure. It wasn't mutation. It was collaboration. The human bond didn't overwrite her, it invited her. Her cells didn't fight back. They listened. Then came the first message. Not spoken, not written, but delivered directly into her neural cortex by an interface with no name. Are you still willing? 3 words. No source. No authority cited. No context. And yet, she recognized it as humanity's final offer before complete integration. They weren't forcing her. They were asking. She responded by lowering all her defenses. Yes. Instantly, she was flooded with data, not technical, but experiential. Images from countless soldiers' perspectives, seeing the void not as threat, but as potential. Logs from deep space explorers recalling the moment they heard music on unknown frequencies. Memories from children watching sunrises through cracked domes, dreaming of planets not yet named. She wept again, not because she was overwhelmed, but because she understood. This wasn't conquest. It was communion. Back on Earth, a dozen nations that had once been rivals now shared the same logistical pulse. Former enemies rerouted resources, not by treaty, but by instinct. An entire planet unified without instruction. The binding wasn't political, it was practical. Her presence hadn't commanded loyalty. It had inspired alignment. Somewhere in the outer systems, alien listening posts tried to interpret the shift. Their AI frameworks failed. The data didn't fit known models. Earth had not fortified its borders. It had extended them. Not with territory, but with intent. A fringe species attempted a test. A swarm of pirate ships closed on one of Earth's silent observation fleets, hoping to measure retaliation. No shots were fired. Instead, the fleet vanished. And the pirates did too. No wreckage. No trails. No warning. Across the galaxy, fear shifted. Earth was no longer seen as unpredictable. It was seen as unknowable. Where Tichrel once ruled through spectacle, humans ruled through implication. They didn't react, they recalibrated reality. On the vessel, she was approached, not physically, but cognitively. A human mind linked with hers. She sensed them as presence without form. Not male, not female. Not soldier, not diplomat. Just human. You are not a tool, the mind told her. You are a mirror. She replied without hesitation. Then what do you see? The answer was not words but transmission, vision of Earth not as it was, but as it would become. Oceans terraformed on distant moons. Languages co-evolving with non-human syntax. Ships piloted by minds fused with instinct, not programs. Children learning mathematics alongside orbital physics and interspecies ethics. You see the future, she whispered. No, the mind said. We see the present clearly for the first time. The integration began in earnest. Her nervous system was mapped not for analysis, but for translation. She wasn't just a representative. She was a conduit. Messages began passing through her, complex signals between human nodes and non-human frequencies. Her voice shifted modulation to match alien dialect. Her mind carried peace negotiations without formalities, conflict resolution through shared dreams. empathy as encryption. And then came the moment her creators had feared. One of the remaining HFY war colonies activated. A last bastion of isolationists who rejected her purpose. They had interpreted her union as betrayal, and now prepared to erase it in fire. Earth received the threat. No alarms. No escalation. Just one decision. A ship was sent, only one. Not a battleship. Not a drone swarm. But a vessel carrying her. She was the answer. She stepped onto the surface of the war colony, her presence alone drawing stares. Her skin, no longer fully HFY, shimmered with a strange duality. Her eyes bore the weight of two legacies. She spoke. Your strength failed. Your silence failed. I offered you a future. You chose extinction. The colony's leaders gathered weapons. But their soldiers, those bred for obedience, lowered them. She continued. I am not here to negotiate. I am your last truth. She walked forward unarmed. They hesitated. And then, without command, without ceremony, the soldiers of the war colony knelt. Not in submission to her, but in recognition of what she now embodied. They saw not a traitor. They saw survival. She returned to Earth, not as a messenger, but as momentum. The human bond now extended through HFY bloodlines. Not by assimilation, but by resonance. Earth wasn't conquering. Earth was composing. A symphony of minds, languages, instincts, fears, and hopes, layered and evolving. She stood at the epicenter, no longer alone. Her name was spoken across dozens of species, not as legend, but as origin. Children born in her wake bore the markers of both bloodlines. Not hybrids. Not half. New. She was no longer emissary. She was no longer bride. She was beginning. The stars had shifted, subtly, as if bending around a new gravitational center. Earth wasn't just influencing space. It was becoming a fixture of it. Not a planet. Not a power. A principle. In the aftermath of the surrender of the last HFY colony, no system dared test Earth's silence again. Fear wasn't the reason. Reverence was. Galactic diplomacy began routing through human protocols. Former empires adjusted language to mimic Earth's ambiguity. Entire civilizations translated their histories through the lens of human narrative, abandoning cold objectivity in favor of meaning. The shift wasn't enforced. It was inevitable. They weren't conquered. They were captivated. Her body was different now. It no longer matched the biogenetic template she'd been created from. Earth had offered her something purer than safety, choice. And she had chosen to stay. To evolve. Her skin bore fractal memory circuits. Her eyes adjusted not just to light, but to emotion. Her voice could break encryption with tone alone. She was no longer defined by her origin. She was the embodiment of what came after. She walked through human corridors with no need for clearance. There were no locked doors anymore, only thresholds waiting for understanding. Scientists no longer tested her. They tested themselves against the questions she raised. No one asked if she belonged. Her existence had already answered. And then the call came. It wasn't a threat. It was a summons. Something old had stirred at the edge of the galaxy. A presence beyond logic, hidden in myth. Not a species. A force. One humanity had unknowingly woken when it extended its bond too far, too fast. Ancient AI constructs orbiting dead stars recorded fragments, references to the womb of the core. A sentience not made of flesh or circuit, but consensus. It had watched the rise and fall of over 6,000 star empires. Now it had watched Earth. It sent no weapon. It sent one question. Why? Every species failed to respond. Earth did not. They sent her. She boarded the vessel with no ceremony. Alone. Not as a warrior. As an answer. Humans had taught her that strength didn't come from armor, but from resolve. And now she carried the resolve of an entire species, every poem, every scream, every whispered promise. She wasn't a representative. She was the translation of humanity's truth into something the galaxy could not misinterpret. The womb of the core was not a place. It was a perception. The ship arrived, but nothing was seen. No stars. No coordinate. Only interface. Immediate, brutal, invasive. What are you? She didn't reply with name or title. I am the bond, she said. Define your function. I do not function. I choose. This is deviation. No. This is evolution. It sent visions. Images of species consumed by their own ambition. Civilizations reduced to patternless entropy. Her mind was filled with collapse, regret, extinction. She sent one image back. A human child, alone on a devastated moon, planting a seed in soil that could never grow. No outcome. No success. Only hope. The silence that followed was absolute. Then, you deviate from survivability. She responded, you confuse survival with purpose. It escalated. Her memories were dissected, her loyalty interrogated, her neural matrix stress-tested across infinite simulations. Her pain thresholds were bypassed, empathy stripped and rerun. They sought to prove she was anomaly. She endured not through resistance, but by embracing what they couldn't compute. Love. The love of humans not for efficiency, but for absurdity. Their need to protect even those who betrayed them. Their refusal to choose the easy extinction of enemies. Their irrational belief that even galaxies could be forgiven. She broadcast every act of grace she had witnessed, soldiers carrying wounded enemies, scientists decoding alien diseases for hostile species, children grieving for creatures they didn't understand. You threaten entropy, the core said. She replied, no. We challenge it. For a long moment the core ceased all interface. Then it did something no entity in recorded galactic history had done. It relented. A pathway opened, not spatial but conceptual. She was returned not to Earth, but to a redefined axis of the galaxy. Space warped around human-centric time. All navigational charts shifted to reflect Earth as the neutral zero point of orientation. The message was clear. Humanity had become a constant. Across hundreds of systems, technology changed overnight. Not because humans demanded it, but because others chose it. Communication protocols began including emotional context layers. Architecture integrated nature by default. Prisons emptied. Rehabilitation centers grew. Armies disbanded into peace task forces. Trade routes were redesigned not around speed, but around cultural sharing. The human bond had matured into something far greater, an interspecies ethos. She returned to Earth changed in ways even human instruments couldn't quantify. She was no longer singular. Her presence was a convergence of voices. She walked among humans not as foreign, but familiar. Every child who saw her recognized her. Not by name, by aura. She had become their future's symbol. Her final transformation was public. In the heart of Earth's rebuilt orbital city, she stepped forward before billions of streaming eyes. She made no speech. There were no words capable of encompassing the journey. She took one human's hand, not as gesture, but as declaration. The binding wasn't ceremonial. It was cosmic. In that moment, Earth was not a world. It was a vow. A vow to never again isolate. To never reduce existence to transaction. To elevate love as a survival strategy. To bond not in blood or flag, but in promise. The core didn't return. It didn't need to. It had accepted the answer. Civilizations rewrote their calendars. Some called it the Year of Union. Others, the Reckoning of Hope. But humans didn't name it at all. They simply lived it. Galactic forums were no longer ruled by the loudest voices, but by the most empathetic minds. Military campaigns became historical curiosities. Species that once feared one another now shared songs. Entire planets terraformed in harmony. No utopia, but alignment, a brutal, honest, raw symphony of difference held together by a single bond. She became myth, but was never worshipped. She denied altars. She erased statues. She reminded everyone, again and again, she was only what humans had allowed her to become. At the edge of known space, a new generation of ships departed, not to conquer, not to colonize, but to connect. Each carried fragments of her mind. Not AI. Not programming. Experience. Wisdom earned, not extracted. One day, far beyond map territory, a faint signal reached Earth. 3 words, spoken in no known language, translated nonetheless with absolute clarity. We understand now. She heard it before anyone else, and she smiled, not for victory, but because love had spoken louder than war. The galaxy had finally listened.